This is a Word of Life with the Lord's General, Prophet John Anoche.
Welcome back to the Word of Life live broadcast with the Prophet John Anoche. Today I'm your host. Before we went on the break, I was talking about how on the subject on pastors' wives and how the mistakes and the errors of which sometimes we make, which doesn't help in the ministry. Okay, now somebody might ask, like for instance, I'm a pastor's wife. Or yes, when you say somebody who is a pastor's wife, basically there are various types of offices in the fivefold ministry. So not necessarily that you're a pastor's wife, but then you can be married to an apostle, you can be married to a prophet, an evangelist, teacher, a pastor. Yes, so you are somebody who is married to a man of God, found in the fivefold ministry. And so there are certain things that we need to do as pastor's wife. Yes, we don't have anything or guidelines in the Bible concerning how a pastor's wife or a man of God's wife should behave. We don't have that. We only have the bishop's own, which is in 1 Timothy. We just have that. And I think that can also help us in a way. But then, like one man of God said years ago, I heard man of God said that, see, there is no pastor's wife's man, like a pastor's wife's name that is mentioned in the Bible. And it's true and also not true at some points, because when we go into the Bible, we have Zacharias. Zacharias married Elizabeth, and then Zacharias was a priest. So in essence, Elizabeth's name was mentioned in the Bible. Yes, so she had some roles that she was playing at that time. But then, like I said, there is no specific guidelines for us as women of God or people that are married to a man of God. And so sometimes we find ourselves committing some mistakes that do not help in the church. And now somebody might ask, I would say that there are three types of pastors' wives. Okay. For instance, there are the people that grew up knowing that I want to marry a pastor. They grew up with the mentality that I'm going to marry a pastor. So even whilst they were young, they were in school, they were being called Osofumame and all that. Wow. They knew specifically that I want to marry a pastor. Okay. And then there are those that many we find in this ministry, that they marry their husbands as maybe, for instance, a banker, somebody working in the corporate field, a businessman, and then they will be there and it will be like the man will one day come that I have the call of God on my life. Yes. And this ministry, sometimes the prophets of God, do you know that you have the call of God on your life? And so such a person, the wife didn't plan that I'm going into ministry. Just out of the blue, they come to know that, oh, my husband is called into ministry. So I have to work alongside with my husband. And also, we have the people that they didn't plan to become pastor's wife. It was not in their agenda, like personally for their lives. Like if a man can plan their life, it was not in their agenda that I want to marry a pastor. They didn't like being married to a pastor. They didn't admire that role. They didn't like it at all. But then some way, somehow, they find themselves in that role because of the purpose of God and the will of God for their lives. Yes. And most of the times, pastors' wives are, I would say, quote unquote, are misunderstood to some extent. Okay. And also, it's one of the roles that I would say, if I'm permitted to say, is unappreciated by a lot of people. Yes. They don't see why you are a pastor's wife. It is all about the pastor. Everything is just about the pastor. It's about the man of God. It's not about you. It's about the man of God. And yes, the man of God has to be celebrated because you as a pastor's wife or a man of God's wife, you come in as a humble support to the man.
Humble support.
In the sense that with your giftings and your calling, you don't necessarily have to hold a microphone because most of the times it brings that kind of pressure on us. The congregation is expecting that you teach like your husband, you preach like your husband, you do things like the man, forgetting that each and every one of us have been called differently.
Yes.
And so there is this great expectation that comes to the pastor's wife.
So you literally feel it.
You literally feel it.
Wow.
You feel the pressure. Okay, you feel it. People expect you to do a whole lot of things. And most times you are not able to fill that gap. Except the Lord helps you, you cannot even do a quarter of it. And so sometimes these are the struggles that pastors' wives, they go through.
Okay.
A lot of times I've realized that for some time, a lot of people or ladies admire pastors a lot. They want that role. They want to be married to pastors. They want to. I don't really know whether if it is about the glamour, whether if it's about the honor, I don't know, or whether if it's about serving the purpose of God. Because some people love to be in the front row. They would love to be there. They would love to be up there. Okay, some people love it. Some people also do not like it like that. They want to hide themselves. But a lot of times, people do not understand a pastor's wife's role. And so these are some of the struggles that you go through as a pastor's wife. But there are certain mistakes that I will say, as a pastor's wife, we do not need to make if you are married to a pastor. And I would like to go through that. So, like I mentioned earlier, as a pastor's wife, you don't need to fight the church. You don't need to fight the church, because if you should fight the church, God will fight you. Because remember, He says the church is His body. And He says, I will build my church, and the gate of hell shall not prevail against it. And so when you come in as a pastor's wife, and then you are doing things that's against the church, that's against the church, know that the Lord will fight you.
The Lord will fight you.
If there is anything going on in your home, don't bring the church into it. The church is a no-go area for you as a man of God's wife. Maybe probably your husband is the one doing a lot of things, not considering you and all that. You can have a talk. Okay, you can have a talk. And when you have a talk, if the man of God is not going by what you are saying, because anybody who is called by God, automatically they love people. And you cannot restrict them from loving people.
Yes.
That's what I have come to know. That there is nothing that you can do that will stop that. If you check the Bible from Acts chapter 9, verse 1 to 5, if you can go there.
Acts chapter 9 from verse 1 through 5. Then Saul, still breathing threats and murder against the disciples of the Lord, went to the high priest and asked letters from him to the synagogues of Damascus, so that if he found any who were of the way, whether men or women, he might bring them bound to Jerusalem. As he journeyed, he came near Damascus, and suddenly a light shone around him from heaven. Then he fell to the ground and heard a voice saying to him, Saul, Saul, why are you persecuting me? And he said, Who are you, Lord? Then the Lord said, I am Jesus, whom you are persecuting. It is hard for you to kick against the goats. Amen.
Amen. So, for instance, Saul was going after the church. If you read Acts chapter 8, verse 1, he was going after the church,
Yes.
thinking that he was doing good to because they had established some things. Their forefathers had established some